Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, this is Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin coming to you from my home in Holly, Michigan. Thank you for joining us for this live COVID relief bill question and answer session. And shortly before the holidays, Congress got its act together and we passed a bipartisan COVID relief bill. The president signed it into law over the holiday season. And there were a lot of different moving parts to it, a lot of different pieces. A lot of folks have been calling our office wanting to understand everything from vaccines to the PPP small business loan program. So we thought we'd do this session to give you a sense of how to access all of these benefits and what they mean for you. So I'm going to go through a number of things, but I just want to take a moment to address what happened in the Capitol on Wednesday. We were in session, as everyone I think at this point knows, when protesters began to riot and come into the U.S. Capitol, some of them carrying weapons, breaking through windows, those kinds of things. And I just have to say, I still feel a lot of real sadness and frustration and anger for the country, for all that dome symbolizes. I know that the average person absolutely abhors the use of violence for political gain. And I know that a lot of people were shocked by those events. I want to thank everyone who reached out to our office to check on me, to see how we were doing. It's just a real low point for our country. And my hope is that it's such a shock to the system that we improve from here and figure out that we are one America with one destiny. That was certainly my goal. But the topic of today is indeed COVID. And I want to get to a lot of those details. We actually solicited questions. We got in over 100 questions. And we have an agenda today that will outline kind of how we'll go through the most pressing questions. My team has it up here now. But just to flag it, we'll be talking first and foremost about money and the COVID vaccine. Lots of you have been asking about when can you get the vaccine? When can you get slated in? And we're going to go through how you're going to be able to access the vaccine. It's by far the most pressing question people have been asking. Number two, small business relief. There's been important changes to the PPP small business loan program. I want to make sure that particularly our restaurants understand the changes in the program that were designed to make it more helpful for small businesses and to give loan forgiveness, basically free money, which is important. Third, we'll be talking about unemployment insurance. Lots of questions because we extended unemployment. We added another $300. I want to talk about that. The direct stimulus payments. Everyone wants to know, when is my check coming? How much am I getting? Are my kids getting checks, et cetera? We'll talk about that. And then lastly, we had a few questions on other things like student loan forgiveness, rental assistance, and paid sick leave. So that's what we'll be talking about in order today. We're not taking any live questions because, again, we solicited and got in over 100. So let's first talk about the vaccine. I'm going to put my notes up here so that I have my details down pat. When can we expect to get the vaccine? So you all know that the vaccine started to go into the shoulders of our frontline healthcare workers starting in about mid-December. And that has been continuing since that time, as well as moving now to residents in long-term care facilities, particularly those who are so vulnerable and have been such really at the victim side of this because of those close quarters. So based on the governor's announcement this week, our health departments and providers now have the authority to expand who can apply to get a vaccine. And that includes people who are 65 and older, as well as a subset of other frontline essential workers. And I think this one's important for people to understand. Those other frontline workers include K through 12 teachers, folks who work in the childcare industry, anyone with direct access to lots and lots of children, corrections workers, folks who work at the jails and the prisons, first responders who weren't already vaccinated in the first round, people who work at homeless shelters, basically folks who are doing real service provision for our communities in a frontline way with lots of people, now are eligible in this sort of what's called Category 1B to be expanded. Now, folks know that it's been hard to get your hands on a vaccine, even though we know it's, such a hopeful thing to see it going into our healthcare workers. Basically, the way that you get the access to the vaccine is go to your county's public health website. So for Livingston County, for Ingham County, for Oakland County, they each have their own website. And that is where you can start to register for an appointment to get a vaccine. Now, in Ingham County, this has been relatively smooth. And indeed, I believe you have to be over 70 years old to get one in Ingham County, but you can register for an appointment. For Oakland and Livingston County, I will be frank, it has been harder to get yourself an appointment. It keeps saying, no appointments available, no appointments available. What I would suggest, knowing this isn't perfect, is that you continue to go back to your county public health websites every 3 or 4 days to see if their appointments are available. It's been difficult given that the supply of the vaccine is not what we want. We want more. We want the federal government to release the entirety of the vaccine, not kind of try to dole it out. And our governor, along with a lot of the other Midwestern governors, sent a joint letter to ask for that very same thing. So we've got a constrained supply, but we want to start creating that queue, that line. So if you haven't already, go to your county's public health page, and you can try and sign up for an appointment as soon as one becomes available. So that's the sort of little bit about the vaccine and who's eligible. We've gotten a lot of questions about how it seems like the vaccine isn't getting to Michigan, it isn't getting out, it isn't being administered fast enough. We just came out of a meeting with the governor's team, and trust me, this is a very popular question that we've been getting at our offices, so we've been taking it up directly with the governor. And there's a number of things going on. One, as I said, it was supply. We just don't have the supply around the country to get to everyone as fast as we want. And indeed, until we get through all the categories of people to when we get to, young people, healthy people, it will be well into the spring until people are able to young and healthy people are able to get that vaccine. But there's also logistical challenges. And we know that, for instance, in our public health departments, in some of our counties, you have barely 1 or 2 people working in those departments who have responsibilities to manage this logistical challenge. That said, it is our job to get it out as fast as possible. I know in certain areas, in certain states now, they're even looking at mandates to you can't hold on to the vaccine. You've gotten a certain amount of time. And we've been having pretty engaged conversations with the governor's team to make sure that we get our counties the vaccines as soon as humanly possible. For the folks who are in long-term care facilities, there's now a contract that's been let with some of our private pharmacies, so the CVSs of the world, so that our pharmacies can help and go into those facilities, take care of everyone, get everyone vaccinated at the same time. And that's a deal that the federal government has made with some of our local private pharmacies. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, if you're a healthcare worker, you should be hearing from your place of residence, your place of work, on when you can get the vaccine. Okay, let's talk a little bit about small business relief, going to our next topic. As you all know, back in the spring when COVID really hit us, we set up this thing called the Payroll Protection Program, the PPP program. It was a new loan program. Had some hiccups in the beginning. The money went very, very quickly. We saw that, frankly, the businesses that had the closest relationships with their bankers seemed to get applications in first, and therefore a lot of our biggest businesses were first in line. We amended the program over the spring based on feedback, frankly, that we got from folks like you all, business owners, who were saying, hey, that doesn't work for me. And we've put aside and have continued to put aside money for our smallest businesses. So this time around, when we passed the PPP program, we did a few things. One, we opened the program back up again, made money available so you can apply not just for your first PPP loan, but now you are eligible to apply for a second one. A lot of our businesses got one very, very quickly in April, May, June, paid it back, did their duty, but they didn't think COVID would go on so long. None of us did. And so making it through the winter became a really difficult thing. So you're eligible to get a second PPP loan. The as long as your company has less than 300 employees, you have to have used your first PPP loan completely. And you can demonstrate a 25% reduction in gross receipts in the first, second, or third quarter of 2020. And for many of our businesses, that's a very easy percentage of decrease to show year over year. The Small Business Administration has a website that you can go to learn all about it. But the best advice I can give you is to go see your lender, go to your bank or to your credit union, sit down, get that face-to-face relationship going if you don't have it already, and ask them for advice and details on the new rules around the PPP program. So a lot of folks have obviously asked about loan forgiveness. People have been asking me, okay, you're giving me a loan and it's, not that high of an interest rate, but what about a grant? What about turning it into forgiveness so that I don't have to pay this back and risk debt? So the good news is we fought very hard for this. We now have an expedited process to get loan forgiveness for loans that are under $150,000. You can apply for loan forgiveness if you've got a loan bigger than that. But the average loan size in Michigan's 8th district in mid-Michigan is $30,000 to $40,000. You should definitely be preparing to apply for loan forgiveness. Again, this is through your lender. And what we agreed on and negotiated and signed into law is that there is a one-page form that's being created that you will have to fill out. You'll have to show your work. You'll have to show that you spent the money in the ways that it was intended on keeping people on payroll, on accepted expenses. But if you can do all that and you submit this form through your lender, you will be able, most likely, to get loan forgiveness. And again, you can apply for loan forgiveness even if your loan is bigger than $150,000. You just have to show more of your math. It's not a one-page form, it's longer. So those things are extremely important. While we don't have that one-page form, your banker does not have it yet since we just passed this into law basically over Christmas. It was signed by the president. My best advice is to get all your financials in order, all your receipts, everything that demonstrates your payroll, all of the kind of showing your work that they're going to ask for. Just get that together. And again, go have that conversation with your lender on when they think it's going to open up, what to do the day you get the form, et cetera, et cetera. Other changes to the PPP programs, and this is important because it affects particularly our restaurants, which we know are really suffering. I mean, our restaurants are having some of the hardest times. And I think wintertime is hard for all restaurants, but on top of the year that we've had, it's potentially fatal for some of our restaurants. So we made some pretty important modifications to the PPP program aimed at helping our restaurants. In addition to authorizing a second loan, it also puts aside money for our smallest businesses. So that means businesses with 6 employees or under. That's new because the program was to keep people on payroll. Businesses that didn't have many on payroll weren't faring so well and weren't competing so well. So we did a carve out for our smallest businesses. And I know that we have some of those. And then the clarification on deductions. You are allowed, deductions are allowed for expenses paid for with proceeds from a PPP loan that's forgiven. So basically, it clarifies that you can't get taxed on this loan as taxable income. That was something we heard from a lot of our businesses. And then there's additional forgivable expenses, things that qualify. And this is things that help our businesses adapt to COVID, right? Such as cleaning equipment, outdoor heating equipment, anything you did to set up an outdoor patio, all of those things, all the PPE, all those things that you had to do as a business to adapt to COVID environment. We have now added those as forgivable expenses, which is good. And then we also expanded the PPP program to 501c6 organizations. And these are, in addition to certain news organizations, certain destination marketing organizations. So the 501c6 are sort of your Chamber of Commerce, different organizations like that. If you've already gotten a PPP loan, you can change the terms of that loan based on the modifications in this bill. So if you got a loan back in April, but you like the terms of December better, which I understand, please go to your lender, have the conversation about retroactively changing the terms of your original loan. And then again, specifically for our restaurants, we got a lot of push from a lot of places in the country looking for, looking for additional relief for our restaurants. And in addition to the changes of the forgivable expenses that particularly our restaurants have had to invest in, there was also a real change in the loan calculation formula. Instead of 2 times the average monthly payroll cost, it's 3.5 times the average monthly payroll cost just for restaurants. That's a special thing just for restaurants. And then again, all these, in addition to the other expenses we talked about, it also includes restaurant specific expenses like perishable goods, food, and then accommodation for outdoor service. So again, restaurants who might not have been very attracted to the PPP program back in April should take a look at the program as expanded and signed into law in December. Okay, let's turn to unemployment insurance. We got a lot of questions about unemployment. So the question was, does this bill provide assistance to individuals on unemployment or whose benefits have already expired? Yes. This bill included an 11-week extension to the unemployment insurance that was started under the CARES Act back in the spring. That takes us through March 14th. So it was set to expire. It actually did expire the end of the end of December. This bill says, no, we're extending it through March 14th. And this includes extending who qualifies for unemployment. So independent contractors, self-employed people who were only allowed to access unemployment starting back in the spring because of COVID, you are still eligible for another 14 weeks of unemployment. It includes an additional 13 weeks of unemployment compensation to workers who need these benefits, which is great. And then it adds $300 per unemployment check from the federal government. In the spring, that was $600. It is now $300. Fast forward. Now, we know that there's been a lag, right? The unemployment benefits ended at the end of December. We signed the bill. The president signed the bill kind of late. And so there's been a lapse in people's benefits. And all I want to say is that we expect in another week that money is set to restart. And it will be retroactive to when you last got your check. So you won't be missing any money. That first check will be catching you up for the checks that people have missed due to the lapse. It'll go back to December 26th. That'll be backdated to December 26th. So we got questions. Well, I was already on unemployment insurance. Do I have to apply or do anything special to get the additional $300 per check? No. If you were currently receiving unemployment as of December 25th, as of Christmas, you do not need to take any additional steps to restart that insurance and to get the extra $300 per check. That's going to come in your check every week through March 14th. If your benefits had already lapsed, like if they were over back in November, states they have to notify you when your benefits lapse. And again, like I said, there's likely to be this little gap between December 26th for many of you and when you hopefully will get a check here in the next week or two that will catch you back up. And again, michigan.gov/UIA is the website to help get clarity on unemployment. Okay, let's turn to our stimulus payments. Lots of interest in the stimulus payments, lots of debate at the national level on the stimulus payments. So a little explanation. In the negotiations, the House of Representatives had been pushing for a couple $1,000, $2,000 in another round of stimulus payments. We couldn't negotiate that through the Senate, but we agreed on an extra $600 per adult that makes under $75,000 a year. If you make $75,000 to $99,000 a year, you'd get a prorated amount of money, not $600, but something close to it. And then an additional $600 per every dependent child in your home. The president, when the bill came to the president, he didn't like the $600 either. So he said, I want $2,000. Made sense to us. We came back on December 28th. We voted in the House of Representatives to do $2,000 per check. Unfortunately, that bill has not been taken up by Senator McConnell and the Senate. That has been sitting there. So what I can tell you is, if you haven't gotten it already, you make under $75,000 a year, you will be receiving a $600 check plus an additional $600 for each dependent child. I know some people have already gotten it through direct deposit. Some people are still waiting for it. So people have asked us this question: how do I learn more about it? You see the website there. The IRS has a website where you can track your stimulus payment. You can see, am I eligible? Am I getting it? That kind of thing, which is important. The first folks who are getting it are the ones who have paid their 2019 tax returns via direct deposit. I'm sorry, 2018 direct deposit. Those are the ones who are seeing the stimulus payments delivered into their bank account first. The checks are expected to be mailed out in the next 10 days. So you'll start to see people getting their checks in the mail. So as I said, if you want to check on your payment, you can go to the IRS and check on the website. You can literally put in your information and it'll say, you're eligible for this and it's coming, so-and-so. But for most folks, their checks will be mailed on or around January 15th. Now, we've had a lot of questions about people who said, hey, I never got the first round of stimulus payment. I made an unusual amount of money in 2018, and therefore I should be getting a stimulus check, but I didn't get one. How do I complain? How do I, agitate to get my check? So first, you got to go to the irs.gov, get my payment tool to just confirm the status of your payment. If they say, you're not eligible, it's confirming what you believe, that you're not getting a check, and you've got to do something about that. If you believe you should have been eligible for the first round of stimulus payments, or you don't think you got the correct amount, you should be able to claim what's called a recovery rebate credit for the amount that you're owed when you file your 2020 taxes. And a lot of people are starting to do their 2020 taxes. That applies for the second round of payments or the first round of payments. The instructions, again, are at the IRS website, the one that's here. And I really urge you to go look at this tool, because we've got a lot of our residents here who said, I should have gotten a bigger check, should have gotten a check. You can claim it as a credit on your taxes as a way to get that stimulus check back. And we had a lot of people who said, I took the GM buyout in 2018, and so I had an unusual amount of money, but that's not what I usually make. We've seen people sort of claw back and get the stimulus payment that they deserve. They just kind of have to show their math and do it through their taxes upcoming. The one thing I would flag on the stimulus payments, which is an interesting note, if your child was indeed still your dependent and under the age of 18 in based on your 2019 or 2018 tax return, but now they are past the age of 18, they can claim their stimulus check through the IRS. And again, through this recovery rebate credit, they've got to look into it and explain they were 18 a couple of years ago, but now they're 20 and they should get their own fair shot at a stimulus check. So the IRS website and the recovery rebate credit is a really important thing for a lot of people who don't feel like they got their stimulus check that they should have gotten. Okay, let's talk about a few additional issues around COVID relief. A bunch of other questions we've been asked. Federal student loans. We were asked whether there's a pause on federal student loan payments, whether that was extended. There was a moratorium, you didn't have to pay. Unfortunately, right now, that moratorium on paying your federal student loans only goes through the end of January, so the end of this month. It was a compromise that we came to negotiate this bill, but I think for a lot of people, there's a hope and an expectation that we will revisit this issue after January 20th, when we have the inauguration of a different president who may see the student loan issue in a different way. Can't promise, still will be a negotiation, but student loans are only deferred through the end of January, and that's important. That said, for our students, we know that a lot of students, they were working, they lost their job. Their parents were working, they lost their job. There's a lot of change in economic circumstances for our students, and we don't want our students to cut their education right in the middle. So a lot of money, I'm talking about $22 billion, went to our institutions of higher education, colleges, community colleges, the places where your kids or you are going to school. And as part of this higher education emergency relief fund, half of the money any university gets, Oakland University, Michigan State University, Lansing Community College, all of them, they have to spend half the money on their students, right? They have to make half that money available through new grants to their students. So my best advice to you is go and see your financial counselor at your community college or your university or your college, and ask them about the new aid package and how you apply for this new money that they're going to have in their hands. And this was really important in the spring. People were able to access that money. Students were able to access that money, and it really kept a lot of our students in school. So I urge you, go see your financial office at your university or community college. Evictions. Let's talk about housing. Was the eviction moratorium extended? Was there any other relief for renters included in this bill? And then how can people access that relief, right? So yes, the eviction moratorium was extended, but again, just through January 31st, just through the end of this month. And that protection applies automatically. We've had some landlords who have tried to evict people in the middle of COVID. And I urge you to look at the website here, michigan.gov/MSHDA. That's the housing authority. And you can inform the landlords that you have a moratorium on being evicted through the end of January. But obviously, that's just till the end of the month. The good news is this bill that we passed has $25 billion in rental assistance. So that's money to help the renters, but also to help the landlords. We've got a lot of mom and pop landlords who invested in real estate. They need to survive as well. And of course, a moratorium on being evicted means people aren't paying all of their rent. So the funding is being dispersed to the state. And if you go to the website that's listed below, you can find out how to apply for some of that rental assistance. There's going to be application programs for you to get it, but it's a way to make sure that people aren't thrown out in the street, but also our real estate community, our mom and pop owners of real estate are able to survive as well, which is a major source of income for many people. So I encourage you to go to that website. A couple of other things before we wrap it up here. We've been asked about whether employers are still providing paid sick leave and paid emergency family leave due to the pandemic. So this is something that we set up in Congress back in March, so that if you got COVID or your loved one got COVID, or you had to stay home, you had no other childcare to support your child for a short time, that you were able, your business was able to basically get a tax credit for providing you paid sick leave, paid emergency family leave. That was largely for businesses under 500 people. If you're over 500 people, then we assume that they have a leave program that will at least be hopefully sympathetic. And right now, that program was not extended for our businesses, except you can voluntarily, your business, if it's under 500 people, can voluntarily keep abiding by paid sick leave, paid medical leave, and they will get 100% tax credit. They will get paid back when they go to pay their taxes. So that's a real incentive for our businesses to do the right thing. If someone gets COVID, if a loved one gets COVID and they need care, to make sure that employees don't come to work with COVID, don't, expose other people. Now, it's a little bit more complicated for the public sector. And this is something that we're working on with the state of Michigan, is just trying to figure out how we help nonprofit organizations or county organizations who also want to give that same benefit to their employees, but don't get the tax credit right now. So that is something we are working on. Whether it's on these issues or it's on other issues, I really urge you to call our offices. They're open. My staff is working full-time plus. We are still doing really robust constituent services. If you need help with any federal agency, that means the IRS, Social Security, the VA, the State Department, getting a passport, all of those things we can help you do. And with big bureaucratic systems, it's always good to have a few bureaucratic ninjas who know how to get things done in that system. We've helped get over $1 million back for people of Mid-Michigan. Please put us in, Coach, and let us fight for what you deserve, especially when it's fighting a big bureaucratic system like that. So please call our office. Our number is right there, or you can email us. You can go to our website. We keep it up to date with the latest resources for COVID. Thank you to all of you for your fortitude in this extraordinary time. You will tell your grandchildren, and they will tell their grandchildren about what it was like when we lived through a global pandemic, how our business owners managed to survive, how we tried so mightily to keep our lives going. And now with the vaccine, we have a light at the end of the tunnel. That doesn't mean it's here. We have to keep gritting it out for another few months. But I want to thank you for what you're doing for your community and your country by contributing to be part of the solution, part of the community that's working hard to get past this global pandemic. Our office is here to help. Thank you for what you do. Have a warm weekend with your family. Hold them close. And thanks for just being a great support to me and my team. And thank you for the well wishes at the end of a very tough week. So goodbye, everyone. Have a great day.